Why RuneScape grinding works?
PG, known for...
Already here.
RuneScape is grindy. That's like the one thing you think of when someone mentions it.
Yeah.
Chop a tree, mine some more, chop a tree, but this time it's over here. Burn the logs to level up fire making, which
Grindiest
is
game
a
there
real
is.
skill in the game for some reason. The predominant impression of the word grind is something long, a monotonous, repetitive action that you do over and over again. As a medium, video games are great at incentivizing repetition. The more you do something, the better you get at it. And since games are...
The title of the video is RuneScape grinding works. I'm gonna guess why RuneScape grinding works. I'm just gonna guess that you get dopamine from seeing your number go up, and that's why people keep doing it. That's gotta be the simplest way of thinking about it, right? I can't think of anything else.
all about placing a challenge in front of you and pushing you to complete it, these things pair together well. And wouldn't you know, there's an entire genre of game that specifically orients itself around long. That's it, just long. Long what? Who knows? It just needs to be that. A genre, of course, known as the RPG, known for immersion, storytelling, progression, and meticulous decisions that allow the player to experience stories unique to them. Not just narrative stories, but experiential ones. Sadly though, developers only have a finite amount of time to develop something long. If you want your upcoming RPG to convey the length of a journey, the extended arc of a character as they go from one thing and turn into another, you can't handcraft all 50 or 100 hours of that experience. You need to resort to a different kind of long grinds. Repetitive tasks, repetitive side missions, cave systems, dungeons, recolors of enemies, recolors of weapons, randomized layouts that put the...
Now, the only way you can make an MMO with enough content for the way that we consume games nowadays is for it to be an insane grind. Am I right there? Like, RuneScape doesn't have as much content if all the grinds are not insane. That's why we keep playing it. We keep playing it because we have something to do. The moment you run out of something to do, you stop playing. So why wouldn't all the MMOs be an insane grind? That I haven't figured out yet. It just makes sense to me for an MMO. Horizontal progression is key.
burden of level design onto the computer. Despite how terrible this sounds, we as human beings seem to love it. The idea of investing time into something as intangibly pointless as pixels on a computer screen makes our brains go all fuzzy. It replicates the feeling of arduous, monotonous tasks you do at work, except it recontextualizes them into worlds that are far more enticing. You're slaying dragons, you're upgrading weapons, you're not paying off a loan. And when you are, it's to cute anthropomorphic cartoon animals, not a faceless website that threatens to make your interest rates skyrocket. Now, take the success of the RPG and apply it to a new incarnation of the genre, one that blends RPG with the communality of multiplayer games writ large. The MMO RPG, a genre tasked with doing what an RPG already has, yet now it must do so persistently, endlessly, forever. What better way to develop content for such a task than to go long? Very, very long. What was a multi-hour grind could become a multi-dozen-hour grind if the game demands. Suddenly, you aren't inhabiting a sliver of the world, but the world itself. Suddenly, the world exists far past when you choose to interact with it. And what was a representation of your daily work habits in microcosm just became your daily work habits. Again, that sounds awful, but people love it. At least they did. That's the historic trend of MMOs. They started out long-term, narrowed down, became more palatable with games like World of Warcraft, and tried and failed and tried again to mimic that success until...
Well, the thing is that World of Warcraft used to be a long game, but we evolved into metagaming, and what was a long game is no longer long. It's like 5 days played now, 6 days played, you get max level. That used to take people months. It used to take you half a year to hit max level in Classic WoW. But that doesn't happen anymore because we have like rested XP, we have technology, we have meta routes, we have, you know, people that min-max the game. So now the grind is gone. But RuneScape's grinds have stood the test of time. No matter how fast you are, there's always another grind in RuneScape. So RuneScape is like, that's why they say it's like the ultimate grind game, because you can't even metagame RuneScape. It's still going to be a grind. Like even the fastest person, 12 days played from Bodhi to Song of the Elves. And Song of the Elves is barely, not even mid-game really, which is crazy.
Finally getting inspired by the modern trends of current-day live service models, also known as seasonal models. You can churn through a new WoW season quicker than you can a playthrough of Witcher 3. The longest form of genre just became another genre, and slowly the most recognizable feature of it, the persistence of it, became nothing but a forgotten relic of a bygone era. Because how do you keep a world living when most people disappear in the blink of an eye? Experience it in a heartbeat. But people love it, right? The fact that MMOs have become more short form, that it's easy to catch up to people who have been playing for decades because you can buy a boost or get a free one from purchasing the 15th expansion pack, now that items are rendered meaningless thanks to endless cosmetic overrides and cash shops, now that you can experience the new thing in the shortest possible time.
If they ever sold a boost in old school RuneScape, I would quit. Straight up.
Now, the MMORPG has finally found success. Would be something I say if I was a filthy liar. Of course, we all know the stagnancy the genre has been wading through for well over a decade now. The most popular MMO isn't growing, and those around it are either shrinking or simply existing. Except,
don't lie, you would boost to 99 agility? All right, that would be fine.
For one. If you've watched any of my videos, you're probably rolling your eyes. Here he goes again, talking about old school RuneScape, how it's a long-term MMO, how its progression is permanent, and that's why it's successful, and all other MMOs suck because he likes clicking on trees. Yes, and all of that is true, but today I want to take a step back. But before we get into that, I hope you don't mind if I take a quick nap, but I can't. Because like 1 in 3 adults around the world, I've had symptoms of insomnia ever since I was little. That's where the sponsor of this video, Mantis Sleep, has come to save the day.
The sponsor?
Or link in the description. Now back to the video.
That was wicked.
A genre, the MMORPG, has sacrificed.
I actually use one of those sleeping masks. I don't know. I call it an Illidan. I use the Illidan when I sleep, but only when it gets really bright in the morning sometimes.
Its identity in favor of appealing to a broader demographic that has promptly rejected it. Today, games that have shortened their length and supposedly fixed their onboarding issues by speedrunning people to max level aren't more popular than they once were. For every step that World of Warcraft takes to simplify and simplify, clearly no one new cares. Those who play continue to do so. Very few new people join, and those that have grown apathetic to the meaningless, cyclical nature of every new season will likely never truly love it again. Me included. We can appreciate certain elements like its exceptional combat system, but the game itself doesn't feel like it's made for us anymore. Old school RuneScape is the opposite, growing without capitulating to that kind of identity loss. Don't get me wrong, OSRS has made its onboarding better. It's easier than ever to join the game and play it without some of the overbearing friction of ancient new player experiences. But they didn't do this through shortening its lifespan or its grind or its complexity and depth, but rather through tutorializing it in a more palatable manner. Think back for a moment, back to the old days, when MMOs didn't just sell boosts and give them away to skip all the old content developers spent a decade working on, when fixing onboarding wasn't just slapping an out-of-place nonsensical tutorial on top of an outdated product and calling it a day, when the process of actually leveling up was a tutorial in and of itself. I remember those days because I'm still living in them. That's some of the genius of how old school RuneScape has grown as a video game. In 2025, when a ton of WoW streamers checked out the game, the cynic watched all of this unfold and scoffed. Ha, You think that all of the flavor of the month WoW players will stick around with old school
That's
RuneScape
me.
after these streamers get bored and go back to replaying the same World of Warcraft expansion for a third time? How
Damn, that guy's bald.
naive, how pathetic. And they're partly correct in that many of those streamers have since left to go replay the same WoW expansion for a third time and maybe cope about how Classic Plus is actually going to be really good, guys, because yes, of course, Blizzard has totally showcased an understanding of classic World of Warcraft. I don't even have a joke here. Does anyone actually believe that? Anyway, those
Classic
streamers
Plus is
have
going to be
mostly
so
quit,
good.
and
Classic Plus is going to be so good. Please, Blizzard, please. Okay.
And that's fine. Their journeys were incredibly entertaining to watch. We got some of the best content in years thanks to their ability to entertain and shed new light on the game's early and mid-game experience. But clearly, others haven't. That's why after their departure, old school RuneScape just hit a new player count peak, not just for itself, but for the IP. RuneScape is more popular today than it ever was. So it's fair to say that it's doing something right.
How many people playing RuneScape right now?
This is where we go back to what you think of when you hear RuneScape. Why do the grinds in old school RuneScape work, yet those in grindy Korean MMORPGs
165,000.
don't? What about OSRS grows while all of these other games either stay the same or shrink? Today, we analyze how old school RuneScape has forever changed the
I'm ignorant, but is WoW Classic just a re-release of Classic? No. Nobody knows what Classic Plus is. But everyone thinks it's going to be like what Turtle WoW was, where it's a revamped Classic world, no flying mounts, new leveling zones, new quests, class balances, new items, new content. Maybe they're going to add things to the game, some things that work in retail. They're going to add them into Classic, like achievements. Hopefully no transmog. Maybe optional difficulties that don't give better gear, but they give prestigious cosmetics, very similar to like Zuckhelm, Radiant Oathplate, Blood Torva. Maybe they revamp professions to make them actually interesting and useful. This is all copium, by the way, and I'm making up all of this, but this is what I hope happens.
concept and execution of number go up. To understand this, we need to collectively dispel some myths of old school RuneScape's skilling, particularly in how it works and how it compares to other MMOs. I often heard that the now defunct New World,
what would you recommend a lifelong RuneScape player to try out first? Don't play retail.
for example, aptly
Classic,
transposed
wow.
elements of RuneScape skilling.
Play
how
hardcore
its
Classic.
systems were akin to those
Play hardcore Classic. And then when you die, keep playing. So start off with hardcore solo self-found. So play a hardcore Iron Man. And then when you die, keep playing. Transfer your character and keep playing. And then get to 60 and then try to do it again on hardcore. You'll like it.
found in this medieval British point-and-click adventure game. And just look, you have mining, you have smithing, you have woodcutting and leatherworking, which is
See how
like
far you can
crafting.
get.
Clearly, these are similar, right? New World was substantially less grindy, but it had the same
Tygob, thank you for the prime.
interconnected feeling that RuneScape is so well known for. Except not entirely. I did enjoy skilling in New World. The professions were pretty well integrated and satisfying to level, but they are more similar to World of Warcraft than to RuneScape, and that's for one specific reason, or word. Interconnection as opposed to cross-pollination. Big words both kind of mean the same thing, but their application is very different. Most RPGs that have skilling systems have those skills interconnect with one another. If there's a mining, then there's probably smithing. If there's fishing, there's probably cooking, and so on. These are rigid connections, one-to-one, that logically follow through on a gameplay loop. Input, which is to say gathering, then processing, such as smelting or cooking, then output, a use case for what you just made. RuneScape does do this, but only in the broadest
Congrats on the
sense
Inferno Cape,
if you
Gilmore.
don't look past the surface. RuneScape skills are more so cross-pollinated as well as interconnected. You still get fishing that connects with cooking. You still get mining that connects with smithing. But you also get way more alongside that.
You know, we're talking about cross-pollination, guys. I'm just doing Slayer today, but if I drop this down, this is like all the skills that I've gotten credit for from doing Slayer today, and maybe like one farm run. You know, I've made some potions, so I got Herblore XP. I've killed stuff with different types of combat, so I've gotten multiple different combat skills. I got some prayer XP from burying bones. Like, this is cross-pollination. You know, I've gotten a little bit of agility XP from jumping over shortcuts. Like that type of stuff. Just from doing Slayer, I've gotten 10 different stats. So that's an example of what cross-pollination is.
Let's look at mining as an example. In New World, it naturally feeds into smithing, creating armor, weapons, and so on. This is split into different skills, but all of them yield the same thing and are done the same way, different methods of combat. On occasion, it also connects with jewel crafting, since you can find rare jewels through mining. Now, on the other hand, mining in old school RuneScape connects with smithing, sailing, fletching, crafting, herblore, prayer, construction, runecraft, and magic too. When I say the word cross-pollinate, I think of a dandelion, when all the seeds get blown away by the wind and scatter across an open field. In this case, the field is the skills and the dandelion is mining. The connections are not only far more expansive, but they also retain room for future connections. The systems in old school RuneScape allow for expansive growth of existing skills without utilizing existing precedents. What do I mean?
No, it would be sick in World of Warcraft if killing mobs would sometimes drop ores and stuff like that for skilling, like a small amount of them. So you could, instead of having to just only go and mine it, like there isn't cross-pollination in WoW. It just doesn't exist. So that could be kind of cool. The concept of that would be cool in Classic Plus if they revamp the skill systems. I would like that. Chests, yes. Chests have some skills, some skilling items like leather and such. That's a good example. But from just killing things in the open world or doing dungeons, it could be nice if you also got, if there was more of it. I like the way RuneScape does it. Like in Classic Plus, I want as much of RuneScape in Classic Plus as possible. So whenever I get a chance to mention it, I tend to do that. So you'll probably notice that, and that's just something you have to get used to. Because I love both of these games, and I want as much of like both of them to be into WoW as possible without ruining the overall framework of the game. I think theory-wise is on the same page too here.
I mean by this. Mining again. Clearly, it was created to feed into blacksmithing, to create.
Simple as that is tech. That is the simplest way of saying it, is just make OSRS, but with WoW combat and movement. However, that's tougher said than done. But that's what I would like.
Your own armor. At this point, that is ironically the least common use for it. If you're an Iron Man, you may find yourself mining sandstone that you can eventually use as an ingredient to make molten glass, which is a great method for training crafting. This also connects with farming, as you need seaweed for the other ingredient in molten glass. You also use it for fletching, as you can mine amethyst that crafts into tips and then fletches into ranged ammo. It's used for runecraft as a way to mine the more popular Day-Alt essence that yields greater experience, or mine these dense runestones for the unique Arceus training method. In the future, it may be used for even more. That's the open-ended, cross-pollinated mechanism that makes old-school RuneScape skills feel so intersectional. They are malleable, unpredictable, and as a result, become a lot more engaging to manage. In a different MMO, you could go out to mine for ore, then turn that ore into bars and smith them into items. A rigid one-to-one connection. There is very little else happening in or from that activity. Meanwhile, look at how many different areas are serviced by the act of mining in OSRS, which allows Jagex, the developers, to create situations where you are training multiple different skills simultaneously and through proxies. That's a way to make longer grinds feel manageable, but also an exciting point of management and forethought for the player. It's a lot more satisfying to progress 10 things at once and having the agency to choose what point of progression warrants more of your investment, as compared to doing one thing very slowly for a singular linear output. Simply put, having mining integrate into a dozen different things makes it never waste your time. As a personal example, I'm trying to max all of my skills. In doing so, I have already gotten 99 mining and stacked up a hell of a lot of molten glass to facilitate most of my crafting.
Somebody tell Theory-Wise that's not a lot of molten glass. I did 70,000 of those.
But I have opted to instead focus on runecraft as a skill, since the predominant training method I will be using is this Archaeus one, which yields a small amount of crafting experience on top of the runecraft experience I'm earning. I'm effectively knocking out 2 birds with 1 stone, and coming up with that solution was really satisfying.
That's not a lot, but if he's already 98k, if he's 98k, then that'd probably be enough to get him 1 level, or very close.
Management is another term I happen to love. I view RuneScape as a management game as much as I do anything else. The process of accumulating a host of resources and then spending them is extra satisfying when you know that many of those resources have diverging use cases. Virtually everything you earn feeds into more than one thing. After all, there's a reason all of the most beloved skilling activities, minigames, and bosses in OSRS offer a whole host of different kinds of experience rewards. Like in Wintertodt, the fire-making boss, you gain experience in fire-making, sure, but also construction, fletching, and woodcutting simultaneously, while also having the output, the reward crates you earn, grant all kinds of supplies that feed into every other skill too. By doing one activity, the skilling boss, you impact every other future activity simultaneously. The number doesn't just go up, everything does. To further explore the depth of resource management, let's look at herb lore. In RuneScape, herb lore is the process of combining a clean herb with a vial of water, and then combining that new concoction with a secondary ingredient that can essentially be one of hundreds of different things, from spider's eggs to ground up goat horns. And based on that combination, you get a potion with unique properties that you can acquire for a short time after imbibing. What's fascinating about the process of just doing herb,
I think herb lore alone is more in depth than all of the combined skills in WoW. The skills in WoW are so, in classic WoW, they're just so simple. There's like a total of 10 pots in classic WoW that you actually use. That's why I say that they need to beef up the skills and overhaul the skills in classic WoW. I hope they do.
Herb lore is that logically you'd expect it to be mainly an integration with farming, right? Herbs, you farm those herbs, it makes sense. And that is true, farming does play a large role in herb lore. But to farm, you first need seeds, which are obtained through dozens upon dozens of different activities. Killing creatures, just finding them, reward crates, whatever you do in the game has a chance of giving you some kind of seed. You can also obtain the herb itself in its grimy form, which you then must clean. Still, that's only one step of the process. If that alone was it, then the skill would effectively be no different than any other incarnation of alchemy in a video game. You get an ingredient and then create a potion out of it. But here, the mere existence of these highly bifurcated secondary ingredients that are spread across the entire game world creates what feels like 100 different routes to achieve any given point and any given potion, and therefore gives value to activities that would otherwise not have any. A great example is red spider's eggs, which are secondary ingredients most well known for creating super restoration potions, very valuable after you reach the mid-game. Obtaining these eggs is essentially a taster's choice, a selection of different options. You can
go pick them up off the ground like what I did forever. I didn't know you could boss and get these things. Bruh, I was picking up full inventories of these things, like 20 trips in a row and running them to the bank. It was awful.
Grind this unique method unlocked through the completion of a quest. You can kill spider bosses that have a chance of dropping egg sacs for a slower rate, but also have more rewards on top of that. or you can just pick them off the floor anywhere that red spiders roam, and that's just scratching the surface. Birds' nests are an ingredient for the highly sought-after Sardaco brew and are obtained through woodcutting, birdhouse runs, and even killing a giant mole and trading its claws and skin for nests.
That's probably what I'm going to do.
Filled with seeds for farming too. No one action in RuneScape exists in a vacuum. You're always progressing multiple things at the same time. Even more interestingly, this connection isn't one way either. The output isn't just about making your combat better, which it does, but also it connects back into the skills that serviced it in the first place. I genuinely can't name a single MMO that has this level of cross-pollination, and this is just one skill. The potions you create service combat, service prayer, they boost your levels,
not even close, man.
Allow you to access unique areas, you name it. All of that begins with an aggregation of resources.
That is true, man. RuneScape has the crossover, like you doing multiple skills at the same time. Now, RuneScape's got that on lock. No one else does that like RuneScape does. Any game I've ever played. It's very unique to old school.
And find use cases for, or at least determine what the use cases will be. This makes drops from creatures you kill multifaceted as well, where in other MMOs, drops may be considered fodder items, like they exist in World of Warcraft as gray vendor trash junk. There really isn't that in OSRS. Items have different values, yeah, and you may choose to pick some up and ignore others, but each item does have an actual purpose outside of like flavor text and vendoring. The feeling you get from constantly advancing not one, but dozens of things simultaneously is satisfying beyond belief. I really think that once you begin to understand just how many things are synergizing together behind the scenes, the process of gathering resources becomes one of the first sticking points of playing RuneScape. No other MMO even comes close to replicating this feeling. Many have skills and separate activities for those skills, but very few, if any, cross-pollinate them like old-school RuneScape does. All of this is in service of excusing a grind. The idea is that the developers want their MMO to feel persistent, growing, and alive or populated at all times. To do this, you need long-term goals and reasons for players to play. Most MMOs have defaulted to the modern-day solutions, otherwise known as retention tactics. Less so a creative outlet for developers and more so a data analyst's wet dream. Daily rewards, immediate spikes in dopamine for just logging in, a participation trophy for paying to play. And that's because they can't demand a lot of time from players that are conscious that in 6 months, everything other than the cosmetics they've earned are rendered utterly useless. Because old-school RuneScape facilitates long-term grinds thanks to both horizontal and vertical progression in the game, it can demand a lot of time from you as you understand that these are results that are meant to last. When someone says they don't have the time for an MMO, what they really mean is they don't want their time to feel meaningless. And in a fully seasonal soft reset type MMO,
if someone's like they don't have the time to play RuneScape, I guess it doesn't really matter, I guess, if you don't have the time to play RuneScape, because I mean, you could play the game forever, right? He is kind of cooking with that. Like, you could just play a little bit at a time forever. Game's not going anywhere, right? AFK on your phone. There are things that you can do in RuneScape or be doing while not even playing. You know, that it has a huge side of it too that he hasn't really even discussed. So though it's a huge grind, it's a forever thing. Like, you keep your account forever. It always maintains its progress. You can also play while you're busy, which I think is pretty cool. So that's why, I mean, the RuneScape is just has these things that other games just don't have. And why is nobody copying it? I don't know. I can't figure that part out. OSRS equals best dad game? True.
It will, unless you're speeding through the content and have time to waste. Those MMOs end up seeming abandoned and empty in the latter half of every season, which is effectively like half a year. Meanwhile, in an MMO that offers long-term persistence, the time demand is easier to sell. I think that most of the people who look at the grindiness of OSRS and say, I'll never catch up, I'm an adult with responsibilities and 55 children, I can't dedicate this much time to do X, Y, and Z, are incorrectly applying their standard for a theme park MMO to the curated sandbox nature of OSRS. Once you understand that there's nothing to catch up to, that unlike in other MMOs, there are people at every point in the game. Everyone isn't just huddled up in the single relevant tiny little new continent created with the recent expansion. Players are out in areas created 20 years ago as often.
Yeah, I mean, in retail, WoW, you can feel behind because you are. In RuneScape, you're not behind or in front of anyone. You're just at the point in the game that you're at, and that's all that's it. There really isn't any rush. You're just experiencing the game one time, especially if it's your first time playing the game. So you just experience it at your own rate. Like there's no hurry. It's a forever game. It's not going anywhere. And WoW, like you miss one box and now you're behind on item level. And it just feels bad in retail WoW.
As they are in areas created today, because the pool of content in this game grows deeper with time, not just wider. Since there's nothing to catch up to, you never feel rushed to pursue something. It will always be there. It will always have value, and it isn't just cosmetic. That's the second unique tenet of this exceptional progression system. It taps into the most beloved elements of RPG progression, becoming more powerful. Unlike in MMOs like Guild Wars 2, where most of the endgame is in a pursuit of cosmetic rewards,
best parts. Yeah,
OSRS blends horizontal utility-based progression with vertical power progression and has retained that forever. I think it's fair to say that the skilling in old school RuneScape is the most prominent identity of the game. Without skills, virtually nothing about RuneScape would hold the weight it does. To put it in a different way and frame it around the most cliche possible example in video game analysis, skills in RuneScape are akin to the level and world design of Dark Souls 1. I know. Crazy, right? What I mean is, that's how ingenious the creation is and how difficult it is to replicate. You can copy the length of the grinds, but copying the integration, the cross-pollination, much like copying the layered depth of Dark Souls 1, is a feat not even the creator of the game has managed to do since. That applies to both Dark Souls and to RuneScape.
Damn, is Dark Souls 1 that, like,
now
is
that
it,
we
is
understand
it goated?
what about skill design warrants grinds, let's go even deeper. What makes a skill good in old school RuneScape? You may be misled to believe that I am nothing but sunshine and rainbows about this game. It is my favorite MMO after all.
Y'all saw the Brighter Shores reference. He also called out Andrew Gower right there too for not being able to recreate RuneScape. Sometimes they just create a masterpiece on the first try. That happened with RuneScape and Classic WoW. A lot of the magic and stuff that happened in Classic WoW, the game devs admitted they just got lucky with that. Like that's pretty insane.
But that isn't the case. There are many issues with OSRS, even with a feature as ambitiously genius as its skilling. Much like in Dark Souls 1, you have the first half leading up and through Anor Londo, a tour de force of level design, essentially the most perfect RPG ever created, in my opinion. And then you have the latter half of Dark Souls 1, and that's not as good, let's just say. The same applies here, for as successful as the skills are, they aren't without myriad flaws that the developers have begun to slowly chip away at and try to fix. To begin to break down how, where, and why, we first need to understand the different kinds of skills in RuneScape. You have combat skills, those that increase your combat level, a one-to-one calculus for your character's innate strength not associated with external properties like weapons, items, and armor. This encompasses skills like strength, attack, prayer, defense, ranged, and magic. Magic is a bit unique here as it also acts as a focal point of utility, but more on that later. Then you have gathering skills, which are self-explanatory. They are zero input, meaning you don't require a constant influx of something to engage with them. Mining, for example, just requires a pickaxe and motivation to click a rock. By and large, they offer the slowest progression in the game because they aren't balanced around having an input. Everyone effectively does them the same way. Then you have artisan skills. These are the opposite. They require an input, and therefore their experience rates are balanced around first needing to obtain an item through gathering. Put simply, they are much faster to train once you've gathered the necessary materials. Experience rates often double or even triple that of their gathering counterparts. Finally, you have support or utility skills, those which don't easily slot within any category and are mostly there to service other utilities in the game, including other skills. They are the hardest to design, but also are the most interesting innovation of Runescape. They only exist because of the cross-pollination between skills. Due to the unique economy of systems and items, there is a lot of space for skills like
Agility should not exist. There you go, I said it.
these to have their own unique progression paths and supportive capabilities. But because they are so difficult to design, they are also the most mixed in their quality. Most recently, Old School RuneScape released its first new skill, Sailing. Instead of sticking to something simple, like a gathering or artisan skill, Jagex prompted to create a new support skill and make it the largest one ever. Something that synergizes with almost every facet of the game simultaneously. Sailing changed everything, at least in a minor way. After all, it's just one of 24 others. It does this not through the act of sailing itself, as that is a form of transportation, but rather in what sailing unlocks. I reckon to analyze whether sailing has been successful thus far, we need to break down what makes a skill good in RuneScape. As a quick disclaimer, this is naturally my opinion and analysis, so feel free to disagree.
Oh. Okay, I'm under the opinion that fire making and agility should not exist. Have you guys done anything with sailing since you hit 99? Do you ever need it? No. Did it just feel kind of like forced in a way? Because I'm looking at it like, I don't need this skill for anything. You know what I mean? It's kind of just there. 100% force. They changed the vote threshold. It felt like leagues, you do it for a bit and then move on. It did not mix in well with other skills. So sailing is not, number one, sailing needs, you need to need it, I guess. I think there's got to be some reason you need it. Otherwise, it's like, why is it there? And I don't have a huge reason about like why I need it right now. So there's no reason for me to do it. And then number two, the cross-pollination of skills has got to be there too. Like if I could level my agility while sailing, because it's basically just water agility anyways. Like why am I not getting agility XP for sailing around in circles? I feel like that should just be some kind of cross-pollination there. And then number two, there needs to be like some item that you get that's biz, right? Or like very, very good. Otherwise, I don't understand why anybody would do it. All right, let's see if Theory-Wise mentions sailing.
A good skill in OSRS needs to inhabit the following properties: progression, diversity, output, and intersectionality. If a skill manages to tick more than half of these boxes, then it's doing at least something well. Before we dive into sailing, let's just map this standard onto an established skill we discussed earlier, mining, just to see how it stacks up. Progression. Mining has a limited amount of this thanks to its original purpose as a gathering skill that connects with smithing, being an irrelevant connection today. This is one of the most persistent issues with skills in Old School RuneScape. The game has evolved since 2004, but many of the skill's most foundational purposes haven't, thanks in part to a player base that was originally frightened of change, and one that persistently seems to ignore how power-crept a lot of those foundational purposes have become.
The main thing that makes sailing feel separated is because it literally is. It's not on the mainland. So it's not something you're interacting with unless you want something specifically sailing related. Things that connect them more will be added over the years. It can't be as interconnected with other skills are because they've all been out since the release of osrs. I guess. I mean, I think that they could. I think that they could have woven other skills with it a bit more. But that being said, I'm level 60 sailing, so you gotta take everything that I say with a grain of salt about sailing because I haven't done it. I can mainly go off of what you guys have to say about sailing because I'm level 60 and most of my XP is done from AFK salvaging and Tears of Guthix. So I've totally avoided the skill because I haven't felt like anything in sailing was worth the amount of time invested to get it. Sailing would have been cool if we didn't already have teleports everywhere. Slayer, farming, construction, and hunter were not there from the start. True. They've woven the skills together very nicely over time. Maybe over time, they will also weave more skills into sailing. If they could find something maybe with sailing and agility, sailing and rune crafting, that could be pretty sick. Because a lot of people tend to not like agility and rune crafting, so there's definitely a gap there that could be filled with cross-pollination if Jagex wanted to, you know?
Progressing through all the different ores doesn't feel particularly satisfying because the vast majority are pointless. You are stuck on the second tier iron due to it being the best experience rates, and are more often than not funneled into the Motherlode mine, which flattens the skill into a single environment. Modern day additions, such as those mentioned earlier in the video, have created exciting unlocks for mining, but the original purpose continues to be ignored. Mining services smithing last, which feels weird. So when it comes to progression, it's a bit of a mixed bag. It's easy to assume mining as strictly connected to the skill it is often associated with, yet it does anything but, and as a result, I'll give it half credit. And the more physical progression, like the pickaxes you earn, aren't super exciting, but they're something, and at least today, there are a various number of outputs for engaging in the skill. Diversity. How many training methods are there, and are they worth it? Are they fun? Mining is similar to woodcutting in that it features you doing the same thing, clicking a rock, just in different environments. But thanks to how ubiquitous something like the Motherlode mine has become, it feels even less diverse. This isn't helped by the fact that the process of mining itself is outdated. The original method just isn't fun, it's not engaging, it doesn't feel good to do, and on top of that, it's resource competitive, meaning that you are disincentivized from mining around people. This is solved through modern training methods, such as Motherlode Mine, but also isn't super satisfying. What really saved mining here is how many environments have been added since, and how thankfully diverse the process of mining feels within those environments, such as Dealt being a way to train runecraft through mining first. It can also be tick manipulated, which is an advanced method of training that requires much higher APM for around 2.5 times more return. Once more, mining gets half credit here. Output. As we discussed earlier in the video, mining is a mixed bag of pointless outputs that no one mines for, and a collection of rather nice paths for achieving goals. For example, prayer was a skill most often trained through active farming of dragons and other monsters that drop special bones that one can sacrifice for great prayer experience. But ever since the newest continent release, Volamore, that has evolved. Now you—
Mining to get prayer was a genius move, by the way. Mining the calcified rocks, you get mining and prayer XP. Like, those were two skills that were very slow to level, and prayer was a big thing for Iron Man because you can't buy bones. So prayer was very slow, and that was like a genius move.
You can engage in a low input method, mining bone shards in Camtorum. It's a slower method, but it's also relaxed. It's a blend of passive mining and prayer experience. On the other hand, things like amethyst certainly give acceptable utility for mining deep into one's progression. Once more, mining gets half credit here. Maybe this was a bad skill to pick. Intersectionality. How does mining influence the game itself? In this case, I think full credit is warranted. It's a very, very useful skill once you strip it away from its original intended purpose, smithing. Outside of that, it manages to influence half a dozen other methods and utilities that make the game a lot smoother to play if you aren't engaging in the economy. With mining out of the way as clearly a skill that is outdated in input and modernized in output, a utility or support skill, like agility, faces different issues.
Yeah.
Agility fails in all 4 of these tenets because it simply doesn't integrate into the game. There isn't a tangible act of agility. Instead, it is disconnected from your playtime. There are no multi-training methods, no unique outputs, no tangible effects. The original purpose of the skill was to extend one's run energy. It allowed players, once trained, to spend less time walking and more time running. The utility is transportation. But over time, as the utility side of the game's transportation progression has been filled out, you begin to realize just how pointless this is. There are shortcuts you unlock via teleports and quests that are far more influential. Magic and construction become transportation hubs, while agility fails to do the one thing it was invented to do. Additionally, its influence over run energy is rather minimal, especially after around level 50. This is made worse by the fact that the only tangible output is an outfit that increases your run.
The only way I will ever accept agility is if it was as fast to level as fletching. That's the only way I'll ever accept it.
Energy restoration, which you actually have to wear to
once you get to 99, your run speed never drops.
Gain the effects of. So the only time you're really feeling agility as a point of progression is when you consciously wear a goofy outfit that functions with it. If that weren't bad enough, the training methods, i.e. the diversity, is lacking. There are 2 methods for training agility, and most others have since become outmoded or aren't used enough to hold any water in a player's consciousness. There are rooftops, where you spend half your time watching your character do static animations, climbing a banister, jumping off a balcony or something, and the other half clicking between those animations. Doing this method makes you want to jump off a balcony. It's in this depressing spot from a training method standpoint that all the worst skills are, like Hunter cough cough, where it requires barely any attention but isn't meaningfully AFK.
Yeah.
And then there's the
that is the worst. Is because I can't AFK it. I don't care how bad a skill is, as long as it's 1 click every 5 minutes. It does not matter to me. If it's AFK, it's okay. Agility is 1 click every 5 seconds, and it's like 50k XP an hour. And it is miserable.
Hollowed Sepulchre, a wonderfully designed piece of content that surprisingly puts the skill in skilling, demanding players understand the unique movement mechanics of old school RuneScape to avoid all kinds of traps, all the while descending the floors for a final reward. It is one of the hardest activities for skilling in the game, which is also its biggest flaw. Not because that's bad, in fact, high-intensity skilling methods are amazing and should exist for more skills, but because it really isn't worth doing. The amount of experience you get is dependent on if you loot the coffers found throughout, and the loot you obtain is the reward, because the experience rates are rather terrible if you do choose to engage with that mechanic. Only when you ignore the loot do you get more experience than just clicking and watching the animation on rooftops. So for 50 times the effort and skill, you are rewarded with like 20 or 30% more experience per hour, only if you sacrifice most of the rewards. A 300-hour grind becomes a 250-hour grind that is also harder to do and requires more attention. A really weak sell.
Not good enough for me.
Bossing content tuned down all of your experience gained in combat for some reason. Something Jagex has consciously been doing the opposite of with recent
Raids 4 should give runecrafting XP and agility. I'll say it.
boss encounters buffing your gained experience, likely a way to incentivize actively playing the game. Sadly, the issues with agility continue. The marginal difference between the mind-numbing non-AFK dogshit of rooftops and the high skill intensity of the Hollowed Sepulchre also prevents the developers from adding new agility training methods too.
You know the thing in Cox that just gives you like 15k Herblore XP? They need that as a rare drop from Raids 4, But you can do it for agility and rune crafting.
There isn't enough experience reward space to create a medium intensity method, and the agility rates are so low and the output of the skill is so minimal that there isn't room for an AFK method either, as it'll always be considered the best. Agility is a lose-lose-lose type of skill, one restricted by
You can put the Cox one on agility. Perfect.
a lack of
More of
forethought
that.
and
They need that in
reward,
every raid.
poorly integrated with unlockable shortcuts that barely feel faster than just running, and an outfit that has slowly lost its presence in the game. This is all brought to a head when you realize herb lore has more impact on your run energy than agility does. Stamina potions effectively nullify your run energy depletion for a couple minutes, making them a more impactful unlock for run energy than anything in the skill created to impact run energy. While I'm sure we can all think of ways to fix this, this video isn't about that. For reworking agility, that may come in a future video, but I think it's important to recognize that the way to fix something like this isn't just to buff experience rates, but rather to reconsider the output. What can agility give that feels more tangible and, even more importantly, motivating to actually do? Anyway, to finally go back to old school RuneScape's newest skill, sailing. I have been a proponent of it.
Give agility XP while running and just make it really, really slow. I would say yes to that. I would vote yes to that.
Ever since I heard of its impending release. It's a cool idea that had both fair and unfair criticisms levied at it before it even released. I covered many of these in older videos, so feel free to check those out. So now that it has finally actually been launched, did it work? Is it good? Am I disappointed? No, I'm not. In fact, I put it in the A tier in my skilled tier list video, which you can find on my second channel, Theorywiser. If you're wondering why, let's just apply the existing methodology above. As a utility skill, sailing was created with the intent to prioritize a unique progression system. The game can't just all be better armor and weapons to hit harder, and sailing is evidence of this, as you unlock new boats and upgrade their hotspots, their utilities, their hulls and masts, and all that kind of stuff. It's a simple but effective progression system. There is a tangible difference between a starter hull and a mahogany one. You are noticeably faster, an effect agility could only dream of. In addition to this, the progression doesn't exist in a vacuum, as it impacts the rest of the game thanks to all the new islands that have been added into different oceans. Oceans which you can only access through upgrading your boat and doing some of the quests. Some of the islands are small, housing a couple unique features, while others are far more valuable, such as this late-game Frost Dragon Island that provides one of the best new prayer training methods in the game. Upgrading your boat is like finding a new key in a Metroid game. It unlocks areas that you might have seen but couldn't access before. While there is a slow start, levels 30 to 87, which is the bulk of an average player's time with any skill because most people don't pursue max levels, is some of the best skilling in the entire game. That is most true with the second tenet, diversity, where sailing inhabits a larger diversity of training methods than any other skill on release, from the explorative charting of the seas to the rather arduous and boring courier missions to the AFK salvaging and my favorite, the Barracuda trials, an adaptation
my favorite
of
is the
Hallowed
AFK salvaging,
Sepulchre, but like actually balanced. Shout out to the designers too, since they created an entirely new method of movement and then understood their creation well enough to develop something as tightly designed as these trials. It took Jagex.
Whose favorite thing is the trials? What is going on, Theory-wise? There's something wrong with Theory-wise, guys. He likes water agility but hates agility. I don't understand.
2 decades to understand movement well enough to design something like the Hallowed Sepulchre, and that's with player aid. Barracuda trials were designed preemptively. That's a feat in and of itself. The trials actually give an exciting amount of experience too. Alongside these standard methods of training, there is also ship combat, which honestly is a pretty large miss thanks to how tedious the process is and how slow it feels. That's the weird side of this whole thing. They understood the depths of movement well enough to create a water-based hollowed sepulcher, but were strangely conservative about the depths of combat on land, and weren't able to adapt it to sea in a satisfying way. Additionally, there are multi-training methods too, like trawling.
Trials are decent XP. I see a lot of you guys saying that the boringness is justified based on the XP per hour. I guess I could get behind that. If agility was like 300,000 XP an hour, it wouldn't be that bad. But because it's 50k, it's like, dude, it is like just mind-numbing, bro. So I guess I could get behind sailing in circles as long as the XP is justified.
A rather unique blend of fishing and sailing that is at once novel when requiring you to follow a shoal while simultaneously catching its fish, and frustratingly tedious due to the other portion requiring your eyes to be fixed on the game's UI more so than anything else. And all of this is not even counting the new methods available for training different skills on new islands, such as this new hunter training method where you catch crabs. I never thought I'd say this, but it's a hunter training method that I actually enjoy. While not every new thing for sailing is great, the diversity is undeniably impressive for a first release.
Catching crabs.
Over the years, I can see this skill improving the problematic training methods and eventually becoming an S-tier addition. The output of sailing is similarly focused around the 30 to 87 range. There isn't anything exciting past the late 80s, but that's fine as it gives room for future reward space that responds to player demand. What I love is that the progression and output feed so harmoniously into one another. You may unlock an island with a new hunter training method, as I mentioned, which feeds into a new herblore potion, which feeds into a new quest, and that feeds into a new farming location with new kinds of ingredients. The output of the skill isn't binary. It's not just a resource, it's the ability to unlock dozens of new resources. The grandest success of sailing was how much it improved other skills. And that's the point of a support skill, right? It has evolved the outdated and gave what once was without value new value. It's a testament to the consideration the developers put into its release. That's why the output and sailing's intersectionality are so.
What skills did sailing make better? Did I miss that? Wood cutting. That's right. You got better trees to wood cut. It made construction better? Herbalism, prayer, con, and wood cutting. Arma brews are great for herblore XP. How did it make construction better? It's better than mahogany homes? It's an AFK construction method. I have not heard of this yet. Well, I mean, yeah, you level up your boat and you get construction XP. The repair kits you make, almost on release, you could AFK construction and sell it and almost break even. It's more for mains. Okay, I'm thinking from an Iron Man perspective, so the mans, you guys have to chime in and tell me what the tech is that you're doing there. Frost Dragon, Magma Worm are really good Slayer monsters. I wouldn't say that it made Slayer better, but it definitely gave you options as an Iron Man for the Aqua Knights, which at some point I might unlock just for the prayer pots.
So thoroughly connected. The long grind to max level wasn't particularly painful because every unlock had a proper impact and caused me to consider more than just the process of sailing itself. But that's really good too. Something I took note of rather quickly is that the act of sailing is pretty great. The animations are snappy, responsive, and even strangely immersive for a game that is as antiquated visually as old school RuneScape. The process of lugging up salvage with your crewmates on the high seas is such a harsh juxtaposition to mining some ore or hopping between rooftops. There is this true sense of improvement. The skill feels like a real skill ought to in the world it inhabits, as opposed to agility that is trained through activities that wouldn't otherwise really increase your agility. Why does jumping on balconies make you more agile while dodging boss mechanics doesn't? Overall, sailing was a tremendous launch.
Give us agility for doing combat, please, Jagex.
Plagued with expected issues that aren't large enough to not fix. As a skill, it's already one of the best, and it didn't even need to go through 20 years of iteration to achieve that. The reason we just went on such a extended analysis of skills in old school RuneScape is because through understanding their successes and failures, we begin to recognize why RuneScape is so unique in the MMO space. It's not just because of horizontal progression, it's not just because stuff is long or grindy, it's not just because the number goes up. There's something more there. If it were as easy as recoloring half a dozen mobs and sending players off to kill them, then more MMOs would be successful. A lot of the community often says or jokes that the method of play on offer is laughably simple. Chop a tree, then do that again over there. But that's not it either. It's almost accidental how much of this game's core systems seem to service long-term play. For example, a game with high fidelity, AAA graphics, and super intense combat is not really service.
Chat, how am I getting 0 agility XP for doing tick perfect moving methods in Cox and Godfly and stuff like that, but I'm not getting agility XP for that? That's a good point, man. Theory-wise is cooking today.
Grindy and long-term, because it demands your attention 100% of the time, something you certainly don't want to do if that attention is spent on endlessly repeated actions. Because old school RuneScape can run on a Game Boy Advance and is formatted around point-and-click gameplay loops, you can keep it running on your computer while playing other games. You can create low-input training methods and high-intensity, high-skill combat simultaneously. Funnily enough, old school RuneScape does just that, because it's also the hardest MMO I have ever played as well, which sounds crazy to everyone who hasn't ever played it. That's why I would never want RuneScape to go WASD. The heart of the gameplay doesn't ask for that, nor would the game benefit from it. If you had to chop a tree for 150 hours in World of Warcraft, that would suck. The game doesn't have enough systemic depth to facilitate cross-pollinated skilling and is resource-intensive enough to not warrant much AFK time. It doesn't have the ability to be like RuneScape, which is why I sometimes find myself balking at the comparisons made between New World and all the other MMOs that have put more effort into their skilling platforms. It took a fraction of the time to max all skills in New World as it does to max a single skill in old school RuneScape. The journey is, by comparison, pithy and short. It has to be. I can't play New World on my second monitor, even if I wanted to.
6,000 hours.
I can't edit a video while trying to mine. Some MMOs, like Final Fantasy XIV, opted to create a more creative approach. Instead of long-term grinds, they facilitated a more engaged gameplay system for crafting and gathering. Other MMOs may take from RuneScape the barest of its foundations, yet neglect the depths of its systems. Believe it or not, you can make a point-and-click adventure game like RuneScape, but it takes a lot more talent to envision a reason for people to actually point and click. It seems like MMOs have given up on that, the dream of a persistently populated world, one that expands.
How would you feel if max combat in WoW took 2K hours? I'd be fine with that. As long as they adjust the way that you interact with mobs. Right now, you can't really hit a mob that's 4 levels higher than you, 5 levels higher than you. You definitely can't land any shots on unless you're a hunter. If they changed everyone's combat to the way that hunters interact with mobs, I think it would be fine. Like if I can hit a mob that's 10 levels higher than me, I just don't hit it very hard. I think that that's okay. I wouldn't mind that as much. But with the way that it is now, it would be terrible.
One that evolves and transforms, that you can spend years in without break, has died. Maybe that's good. Maybe in the long term, that is the only way the genre can continue to survive, even if it is in as meager and visionless a form as it exists today. But I don't want to believe that. Games are the most popular medium on Earth. More people play video games than watch movies and TV shows. The myth that a genre is too niche, too small, has long since been debunked. Hardcore RPGs like those of From Software's catalog have sold tens of millions of copies. What was a hyper niche like a complex CRPG now has Baldur's Gate 3. To pretend like MMOs have no option other than to file down their souls into facsimiles of live service arena games is just not true. People do have the time for an MMO, a real MMO, not an MMO Lite or a $60 boost to max level.
This is the World of Warcraft at 10:45. We're still installing it. We plan on playing for at least 12 to 13 hours. We're going to document it. So
We're going to document it?
What?
More than 12 to 13 hours.
Good call.
That's me, bro. Dude, guys, this is me on the CRT monitor installing my 3 discs of WoW to play vanilla at launch. I just bought the game midnight at GameStop, and I'm about to play all through the night until I can't play anymore. It's going to be so sick. This is like one of the most nostalgic days of my life, is like the launch day of WoW. This is so sick.
It's at 11 o'clock tonight.
So, why don't you show the people what you got today? You got the collector's edition. We will check back in a little bit. What level are you, Don?
4.
Level 5. On the
perception
Warlock
and
laptop, bro.
expectation has just been manipulated over the years. Speed and endgame aren't and shouldn't be the only goals.
Were you bald in 2004? No. What the hell?
Things disproven time and time again by a silly, grindy British MMO from 2002. I hate to say it, but MMOs are meant to be grindy. That's
Yes,
the
they
point.
are.
That's how the world continues to survive and
Stop making vertical progression MMOs with pay to win and level skips. Stop it.
live and thrive after you log off. Yet with all of that in mind, we need to acknowledge that there are good grinds and bad ones. It's up to us to distinguish and separate them. But who am I to say what the future looks like? It could be that nothing changes, or that developers finally start to tap into the identity of the genre instead of recoiling away from it. I really don't know. What I do know, though, is I have trees to chop.
Same. I'm not going to do it, though. Unless I'm AFK.
Thank you for watching.
Good video,
and a
Theory
special
Wise.
thanks to my channel members who help support this passion. If you want to join them, feel free to do so down in the description below. I'll see you next time.
Awesome video, Mr. Theory Wise. Basically, what he was trying to say, guys, if you missed that video, is that RuneScape is a good game. It's a long game, but it's a good game. And even if you can't play long time, long game's still good. Because long game horizontal, so you never behind. And you never behind means you never need to worry, because nobody ahead of you. And it no matter if you far in game or not, because it is forever game. And you play forever because it's fun.